into night, you let the weight of the day loosen and fall away as you step softly with me into an ancient Egyptian night, where the heat has thinned, where the stone has released the sun it carried for so many hours, and where the world seems to breathe more slowly with every passing moment. There is nothing to solve here, nothing to remember, nothing to follow too closely. Only a quiet path, a little lantern glow, the hush of distant water, and the feeling of moving through a place already half inside a dream. We will wander gently past sleeping courtyards, along darkened walls, beneath still palms and open stars, through chambers where the air is cool and heavy and kind, and we will do it without urgency, without effort, without needing the night to become anything more than it already is. So let your breathing settle, let your shoulders soften, and let this old and peaceful world receive you exactly as you are, tired perhaps, and ready most of all to drift. The farther we go, the less you will need to hold on to waking thoughts, and the more easily this night will carry you towards sleep. You arrive at the edge of the city, when the last of the evening warmth is leaving the ground, and the sand beneath your steps still holds a memory of day, while the air above it turns silk-soft and cool. And ahead of you, the outlines of walls and gateways rest in muted gold and shadow, as though they have chosen at last to become quiet. No voices reach you clearly here, only the softened murmur of life folding inward, the faint schist of linen somewhere behind a courtyard wall, the distant knock of wood set gently into place, the hush of a woven curtain breathing in and out with the breeze. You pass between low houses whose doorways glow faintly, not brightly, only enough to suggest that somewhere within, the last small tasks of the night are being finished with unhurried hands. A bowl being covered, sandals set beside a threshold, a lamp turned lower rather than higher, a jug lifted and placed down with care. Simple motions, each one already fading into stillness before you have fully imagined it. Above you, the sky deepens in long, smooth layers, and the first stars seem less like points of light than tiny openings in a dark and restful cloth stretched far over the sleeping earth. The palms at the edge of the lane do not rustle so much as lean, their fronds shifting with a patient, papery sound that rises and falls like breathing heard from another room. You keep walking, and the lane opens into a broad way between mud brick walls washed pale by moonlight, their surfaces softened by years and warmth and wind, their corners rounded, as though even stone and clay have learned to release what is sharp by the time night arrives. Here the world feels carefully arranged for rest, a basket left upside down to dry, a stool turned neatly inward, fishing nets hanging in a loose dark veil from a peg, reeds stacked against a wall in calm vertical bundles. Nothing abandoned, nothing urgent, everything simply paused. At one doorway a small lamp burns low in a shallow niche, and the flame is so still it seems to be listening. The light reaches only a little way, enough to warm the rim of a water jar, enough to catch the edge of a threshold worn smooth by many quiet crossings, enough to cast one narrow shape across the ground before letting darkness gather the rest. You move by slowly, not wanting to disturb even that modest circle of glow, and soon the lane bends toward a stand of date palms, where the scent of dust gives way to a faint sweetness, dry and honeyed at once, as though the night itself has opened some hidden store of calm. There is no need to hurry toward the river, though you sense it ahead of you in the coolness that drifts through the streets and in the way the air seems fuller, softer, touched by water before water is seen. So you let your steps remain slow. You notice the places where moonlight pools against plaster and the places where shadow lies thick beside door frames. You notice a rooftop ladder left in place and the suggestion of sleeping gnats rolled near a parapet.
You notice how every surface looks gentler now than it might have in daylight,
as though the whole city has been quietly forgiven by the dark. Somewhere nearby, a child laughs once in sleep or in dream, and the sound vanishes almost before it is heard, leaving only an even deeper hush in its wake. You pass a narrow shrine set into a wall, its small recess cool and still, its offerings already faded into shapes rather than objects. and even here, the silence feels less empty than held. The road widens again, the sky opens further, and with each step, the ancient night seems less like a place you are visiting, and more like a steady tide you are allowing to carry you inward, outward, downward, wherever rest prefers to lead. Soon you come to an outer courtyard where a sycamore spreads a patient shadow across the packed earth, and beneath it stand 2 jars cooling in the open air, their rounded bodies silvered by moonlight, their silence so complete they seem part of the night's design rather than household things. Beyond them, folded mats rest against a wall, and the sleeping dog lifts its head only slightly as you pass, then settles again with the deep trust of a creature that knows this hour belongs to peace. On a flat roof above, linen hangs unmoving from a line, pale as river mist, and beside it a clay bowl catches a little starlight in its curved interior, like water held for no one. You continue through the courtyard and into another lane where the breeze is cooler now, carrying the mineral scent of damp stone and the far green breath of reeds. The city does not end so much as loosen here. Walls grow lower, spaces widen, and the path ahead begins to shine faintly where pale dust has taken the moon into itself. By the time you reach the last row of houses, you are already walking more quietly than before, as though some part of you understands that the river is near, and that every place near sleeping water asks for a gentler heart. The river appears first as a cool brightness between reeds, then as a long dark body carrying the stars in broken lines, and when you step onto the worn path beside it, the whole night seems to exhale around you, relieved perhaps to have reached its deepest, calmest breath. The banks are soft beneath your feet, where damp earth meets dry dust, and the scent rising there is rich and low and steady, the scent of water held close by plants and roots and mud, the scent of something older than words and far kinder than thought. Small boats rest at their moorings with their curved forms barely moving, each one touching the river as lightly as a sleeping hand touches a blanket. Their ropes creak now and then, not sharply, only in little murmurs that disappear into the reeds, and nearby a bundle of folded netting lies beside a post, as though the day simply set it down and never asked for it back. You walk along the embankment, where narrow steps descend in places toward the water, their edges worn smooth, their lower stones darkened by the touch of the river. Here a lamp glows on a landing and makes a golden trail that reaches halfway down the steps before surrendering to reflection. There, a cluster of papyrus leans over the bank and sketches patient shadows across the silver surface. Farther on, date palms bend above the water, their trunks black against the sky, their crowns barely stirring, while beyond them, the opposite shore lies quiet and dim, a suggestion more than a place. You hear the occasional splash of a fish turning below the surface, or perhaps only the river shifting against itself, and each sound widens the silence rather than breaking it. The moon lays a path across the water that no one needs to follow, a pale, trembling ribbon that seems to belong equally to the current, to the sky, and to the drifting mind. You move beside it for a long while, pausing now and then to look at the way reflections gather and loosen, never fixed, never worried by their own changing. The houses behind you have fallen farther away, and the life within them has dimmed to almost nothing, so that the riverbank feels as though it has opened a private chamber inside the night. A moored skiff rocks once and settles. Reeds brush one another in a whispering sweep. Somewhere downstream, an oar knocks softly against wood and then is still. All of it so slight, so measured, that your breathing begins to imitate the rhythm without trying. Near a grove of palms, the path lifts gently, and from there you can see small garden plots close to the water, bordered by low ridges of earth, their leaves dark and shining under the moon. Water channels cut between them hold thin ribbons of reflected light, and the whole pattern seems drawn less by hands than by patience. A basket has been left beside one patch, half covered with cloth. A narrow shovel leans against a post. Sandals stand neatly paired, as though their owner stepped away, only to wash, only to rest, only to vanish into sleep a moment before you came. The tenderness of these small arrangements moves through you without needing to be named. Nothing here asks to be admired, nothing calls for meaning, and that may be why the river feels so restful, because it receives everything without announcement. It receives the tide boats, the silent gardens, the the low stairways, the wind in the reeds, the light on the water, and now your slow footsteps too. Eventually the path bends toward a quay of broad stones where pillars rise in shadow, and the remains of days' labor have been left in orderly hush. Bundled reeds, stacked jars, a coiled rope thick as a sleeping serpent, a wooden pole laid straight upon the ground. Moonlight touches each shape, just enough to reveal it, then leaves the rest to darkness, as if even sight has learned not to take too much from the night. You stand for a moment and look downstream where the water widens and thins into brightness, and it seems possible that the whole world beyond this place has quieted also, that every distant road and every unseen dwelling has agreed, for one gentle hour, to be still. The thought passes through you like cool water over warm skin. Then you continue, following the bank toward the deeper heart of the sleeping city, carrying with you the calm weight of the river's slow and endless breathing. As you walk, the scent of lotus drifts faintly from some hidden inlet, delicate and watery and almost unreal, and for a few moments it seems that the river is not beside you at all, but moving quietly through you, smoothing every hard edge it finds. A heron stands motionless near the shallows, one pale shape among darker shapes, and when it finally lifts and passes across the water, its wings make no more sound than a hand moving over linen. Then there is only the glide of shadow and the soft widening rings left behind where it had been waiting. You slow beside a low wall and rest your hand there for a moment, feeling grain and age and the cool blessing of stone after heat. And when at last you move on, you do so with the quiet certainty that the night has already made everything slower, softer, and easier to release. Leaving the river behind by slow degrees, you follow a processional way that rises toward larger walls and broader courts, and the city changes around you without losing its calm, becoming more open, more spacious, more resonant with stone. The ground beneath your steps grows firmer, the houses fall away, and ahead, great gateways stand in moonlit silence, their surfaces pale where the light touches, and fathomless where it does not. Yet nothing here feels severe tonight. The scale that might have overwhelmed by day is gentled by darkness, softened by shadow, and held at a distance by the same hush that settled over the lanes and the riverbank. You cross an open court where columns lift like a forest made patient, each one rising out of darkness and vanishing into it, their bases washed with silver, their upper reaches hidden in blue-black calm. The spaces between them are wide enough for stillness to gather fully, and as you walk there, your footsteps seem to disappear before they can echo. A basin rests at the edge of the court, its water flat and dark, reflecting one star, then none, then one again as the breeze folds lightly across it. Nearby stand low benches of stone, empty now, cool now, belonging not to conversation or ceremony, but simply to the hour itself. You move onward beneath carved lintels and along walls so broad they seem less built than quietly placed, as if the earth had lifted its own shoulders into form and then gone to sleep. In the sheltered passage beyond, the air turns cooler, touched by stone that has spent the whole night letting go of warmth. You can almost feel the temperature settling around you like a second garment, one made of shadow and relief. Lamps burn in distant recesses, never near, each one a small amber pulse in the dark, enough to mark depth and direction without undoing the mystery between. Their light does not conquer the blackness, it simply lives within it, modest and calm. As you pass through chamber after chamber, open court after open court, the knot seems to grow larger rather than smaller, as though these spaces were built not only of stone, but of intervals, pauses, silences, breaths. One courtyard holds a single tree in its center, its leaves dark against the stars, and around its trunk, the paving is worn by many old crossings, now reduced to nothing more than smoothness. Another opens toward a roofless hall where moonlight falls in long white shapes between rows of pillars, laying bright paths on the ground that go nowhere and need not. In one passage, the wall is cool enough that the air beside it feels almost damp, while in another, the faint fragrance of old resin lingers, sweet and dry and ghost-like, as though it had been sleeping in the cracks of stone all day, only to wake after sunset. You notice details without effort: a folded cloth on a low ledge, a bronze bowl turned upside down beside a doorway, a broom left leaning at such an angle that its shadow stretches longer than the thing itself. Signs not of activity, but of completion, of tasks ended, of a place that has already put itself to bed. In the innermost court, the silence grows extraordinarily deep, not empty, not cold, but velvety and complete, the kind of silence in which your own breathing begins to sound kind. There is a rectangular pool there, and the sky lies within it so perfectly that for a moment it seems the stars exist below you as much as above. A faint breeze sends one shiver across the surface, and the reflected heavens break and mend without complaint. Around the pool, the paving stones hold patches of moonlight between long bars of shadow cast by columns, and as you move through them, it feels like passing slowly through stripes of cool milk and dark water. No one calls, no sandals scrape, no doors move on their hinges. Only the smallest living sounds remain. A night bird far beyond the walls, the brush of palm fronds from some unseen garden, the soft pop of a lamp wick settling itself into flame. Even these seem less like interruptions than assurances, little signs that the sleeping world is keeping watch kindly over itself. You pause beneath the colonnade and look outward across the court, and the pillars appear endless from where you stand, each one half hidden, half revealed, the moon choosing edges and leaving curves to shadow. The sight is so calm that the mind loosens under it. Thoughts lose their habit of returning, questions fade before they form, and in their place there is only a drifting awareness of cool stone, dim light, wide darkness, and the quiet privilege of being allowed here at such an hour. When you move again, it is with no sense of destination, only with the feeling that deeper rest may lie just beyond the next threshold, and the next, and the next. At the edge of the final hall, a curtain stirs once in the breeze and settles, and that tiny motion seems to complete the whole place, as though the night wished to remind you that stillness is never rigid, only gentle, only alive in the smallest possible ways. You follow that feeling onward, carrying the coolness of the stone with you like a blessing. At last, the great courts loosen behind you, and the path descends again into quieter spaces where gardens, terraces, and sleeping rooms lie close together beneath the open sky. And here the night feels less monumental and more intimate, as though after showing you its wide and solemn face, it now invites you nearer to its heart. The paving underfoot gives way to softer ground in places, to swept earth, to strips of reed matting laid beside thresholds, to worn steps that lead into moonlit enclosures fragrant with leaves and water. You pass through a garden court where a narrow channel runs between low beds of plants, the water within it moving so slowly that it only reveals itself when a star trembles on its skin. Broad leaves arch over the channel and cast thick, curved shadows, while white blossoms gather what little light there is and hold it quietly, like cupped hands protecting a flame. At the center of the garden stands a shallow pool edged with stone, and floating on its dark surface are petals or leaves or both, impossible to separate at this hour, each one drifting without destination. Beyond the pool, a colonnaded porch opens towards sleeping chambers whose curtains hang loose and still, and from within comes the faint, cool scent of linen, clay, and the last breath of extinguished lamps. Everything here speaks the language of completion. Water jars filled, sandals paired, a folded garment left on a stool, a fan of woven palm resting against a wall. Even the shadows seem arranged rather than fallen. You continue through these inward places with the gentlest attention, feeling that each courtyard offers a softer version of the last, each doorway a deeper layer of quiet. In one room open to the night, low beds stand beneath gauzy coverings that stir almost imperceptibly in the breeze, turning the moonlight into a soft fabric of silver haze. In another, shelves hold bowls and folded cloths and sealed jars, all reduced by darkness to simple shapes that ask nothing of you except calm witness. A child's toy boat rests near a step beside a basin, forgotten not in neglect, but in the perfect trust that morning will come when it chooses. Somewhere a dove shifts on a beam and settles again with a muted flutter, and even that little movement seems to deepen the peace instead of thinning it. You find a stair rising to a flat roof and climb slowly, each step holding a little more moonlight than the last, until the city opens around you in a wide, hushed expanse of pale walls, dark palms, terraces, and shadowed courtyards stitched together by the silver thread of the river in the distance. From here the roofs seem like resting platforms for the night itself. Mats rolled near parapets, cushions left where evening air was once enjoyed. Low tables now empty except for a cup or a bowl forgotten in stillness. The wind is cooler above, crossing the rooftops without obstruction, brushing your face and sleeves with the tenderness of water. You stand there for a while and let the sky do what it has wished to do since the beginning of your walk, surround you completely. The stars are steady now, numerous without feeling sharp, and the moon lays a pale softness over everything it touches, so that corners blur, distance deepens, and the whole city appears less constructed than dreamed. From the roof you can hear the smallest weave of nighttime life, a far dog answering another and then falling silent, a palm frond tapping once against stone, the hush of the river carried on the wind. Somewhere below, the faint pour of water from one vessel to another, followed by nothing, followed by rest. No single sound asks to be followed. They arise and fade like thoughts that have decided not to trouble you tonight. And this perhaps is what the old city has been giving you all along. Not spectacle, not story, not meaning, but permission. Permission to move slowly. Permission to leave things unfinished. Permission to let darkness soften every outline until even your own thoughts lose their edges and become easy to set down. When you descend from the roof, you do so peacefully, returning through the stairwell and garden court as though passing back through layers of cool water. The pool still holds its fragments of reflected sky. The blossoms still shine softly in their corners. The curtains still hang in perfect surrender. And you understand now that the night does not need you to remain awake to continue. It will go on being gentle without your help. So you come at last to a sheltered place beside the garden wall where a reed mat has been spread and a cushion rests in the shadow. And you lower yourself there as though the whole walk has been leading to this simple kindness. The stone behind you is cool, the air before you is soft, the scent of water and leaves drifts in slow intervals, and the city, ancient and patient and almost entirely asleep, keeps its calm around you like a protective hand. Here at the edge of dream, you no longer need to imagine the path ahead. You only need to feel your breathing grow heavier and slower, to feel the night widen gently around you, to feel your body understand what the mind has been resisting, that nothing more is required, that the journey is complete, and that you may rest now, fully, deeply, and without holding anything back.